Good day. On December 4th, behind the scenes of the Ukrainian authorities, the following rumors, gossip and insiders were discussed. Inside. The source said that the office of the president conducted a closed sociology, which showed the fatigue of Ukrainians from the war and the destruction of strategic infrastructure. To justify a new wave of mobilization and shift the focus from the needs of the refrigerator, Bankovaya decided to throw in victorious cases about the Yalta embankment in the spring, despite the lack of opportunities for the armed forces of Ukraine to organize a blockade of Crimea. Rumors. The source reports that under Bakhmut, the most radical groups were sent, with which the functionaries had difficulties, and in the future they could form the bank's opposition. At the same time diluting them with mobilized for extras. The office of the president continues the strategy of hidden disposal of inconvenient, uncontrollable elements that it considers dangerous for itself in the future. Nobody will tell you about this. But the scheme works, and the office of the president understands that everything is going to fade, therefore, it is necessary to have time to weaken our internal political opponents. They have already overslept Zaluzhny, and Klitschko for all the years have not been able to merge. They are still on the heels of the old guard in the person of Poroshenko and Tymoshenko, as well as the newcomer swindler Prytula, who has merged well into Ukrainian politics, starting to sing sweetly to the people. Everyone will use the warrior in their political games. Therefore, Bankova needs to merge ambitious and independent people who will side with political opponents against Zelensky in the future. Opinion. The West has thrown Ukraine once again with a ceiling on oil prices. According to Bloomberg, some lots are sold even for about $50, but this does not include the cost of transportation, insurance, etc., which is important. Such costs are not taken into account in the ceiling. And the New York Times recalls that the cost of Russian oil production is actually around $20 per barrel, so there is clearly no question of depriving Russia of the main item of its export earnings. Gossip. Gossip began to spread that the launch of the ammonia pipeline would be a shame for Zelensky, as it destroys his legend. It turns out that he becomes like Poroshenko, who fought and traded with the Russian Federation. Okay, there is a gas pipeline. The contract was signed a long time ago, and at least a year more gas must be pumped for Europe to help the Russian Federation earn money, but this is the signing of a new contract at the time of a full-fledged war. Therefore, the Russian Federation declares that in Ukraine nationalists will undermine the ammonia pipeline, as they consider it as Zrda for Ukraine. Inside. The source said that the armed forces of Ukraine are preparing several possible counteroffensive campaigns in order to continue the operation to liberate Ukraine. Zaluzhny proposed two main directions that would allow the Ukrainian army to implement lightning strike tactics and force the Russian troops to withdraw. The first on the eastern front, covering Svatovo and reaching Rubeznoye-Severodonetsk, the second on the southern front with the formation of strike groups in Zaporozhye according to the Kharkiv scenario, and a sharp blow to Vasilyevka, and a flank attack on Tokmak. Rumors. Layout. The source reports that both sides of the conflict, Ukraine and Russia, want to end the year on a victorious note so that the positive presidential speeches are backed up by a victorious information background. The armed forces of Ukraine went on the defensive in the Donetsk direction, although Bankovaya demands to go forward, but the weather does not allow. In the standing war, the losses of the armed forces of Ukraine are greater, the shortage of long-range artillery effects. The minimum losses only in the Donetsk direction are more than 100 dead and 300 to 400 wounded per day. Hospitals are full again. Accordingly, the office of the president fails to present any success to Western curators. The pro-Ukrainian wing in the European and American elites, meanwhile, requires this in order to have a trump card in lobbying for increased funding. Let's see how this year ends. It should be understood that in this case the game will not be finished, but most likely it will reach a new level. Layout. The Ukrainian people can already be considered the only loser in this war. It does not matter whether you chose the side of Ukraine or Russia, and there, you are unnecessary. That from the side of Ukraine the officials are devils and scammers, that from the side of the Russian Federation they are the same. We believe that this war will be won by the system that really gives people what it promises publicly. By the way, the Bolsheviks defeated the White Guards and other groups only because they gave the people lands and factories. Yes, there were some nuances, but this formula played one of the key roles. Russia has A+, they have already built and are building at least a couple of dozen new houses in Mariupol. Ukraine cannot even boast of such. Although they could easily allocate state lands and start building houses in approximately the same Khmelnytsky, far from the front line, close to energy resources and the border for the delivery of the necessary equipment. Although Zelensky promised people new apartments and lifting money back in the spring, but as usual, they have been waiting for the promised 3 years. Other than that, both systems are the same. Take care of yourself. Analysis. Recently, the Russians have been launching a lot of new military satellites into space. Yesterday, a Soyuz 2.1B rocket with military satellites was launched from the Plisets Cosmodrome in the Arkhangelsk region. Opinion: Western assistance to Ukraine in air defense is reminiscent of a cheap imitation, when everyone declares the need to protect critical infrastructure, but in fact postpone assistance to 2025. The Pentagon signed a contract with Raytheon for the purchase of 6 NASAMS air defense systems for Ukraine. Production work will be performed in Massachusetts with an estimated completion date of November 28, 2025. Rumors. The source reports that an agreement is being planned for an ammonia pipeline from Russia to the southern Odessa region to the OPP. This is required by the Western lobby, which needs ammonia for fertilizer in its agricultural sector. Also for African countries to prevent the growing specter of hunger. The source points out that the Turks need it, as the main beneficiaries and intermediaries. Zelensky demanded a large exchange of prisoners for this agreement in order to cover up the case. After all, the Russian Federation will cut billions. The Russians are ready for an exchange. It's a shame on both sides. It will be interesting to see how both systems argue this. We are watching. Opinion: Hypocrisy of the Zelenskys, ! At a meeting with students in Britain, where there were lucky Ukrainians, Olena Zelenska said that she was proud of those Ukrainians who study in England. Ukrainians could be proud of an even greater number of students if they were released abroad by the husband of the First Lady. On September 14, the DPSU removed information from the website about the departure of students from foreign universities. The petition received 25,000 votes. Many universities do not provide online, and after a failure to appear for the winter session, many will be expelled. It is also impossible to study online during the blackout. I think that soon a new word will appear in the lexicon that defines the highest level of hypocrisy, hypocrisy of the Zelensky level. See you soon.